We are live again. Thank you very much, Mircea Pricăjan. Thank you very much for fixing this problem. It is once again a Familia literary magazine that is saving the our streaming. Mircea, please tell us, is it possible what Andrei asked? That means that Andrada and Alexandru would repeat their readings with the camera on their faces?
Yes, of course, no problem.
Thank you very much. So in this case, we will continue as planned with Fernando, and then Alexandra, and then Andrada and Alexandru will repeat their poems. So Fernando, please tell us what you think about the chances of Romanian poets to be published and translated into Portuguese and published in Brazil. And what do you think about the poetry you heard today? Doamnelor și domnilor, Fernando.
So, Mircea, thank you for the invitation. And I was thinking, since Portuguese and Romanian are the same language, maybe I should continue in one of them. No.
You mean my English is so bad that I should try speak Portuguese, which I don't speak at all?
Eu tenho certeza que todos os romenos compreendem português.
Oh, perfect. Everybody understands, I'm sure.
So, what can I say? I have been translating Romanian literature since I arrived in Romania for the first time in 1997. Mircea, 1997, it was not 35 years ago.
It was 27.
And translating Romanian literature for me was something natural because I was living here. I was getting in touch with the language. I was getting in touch with the culture, with the way of thinking. And even in my process of learning Romanian language, it was natural to start translating. I have always used the translation in order to learn better a foreign language. And little by little, I was able to find publishers in Brazil who were interested, who wanted to risk on Romanian literature. And in this context, the support of the ICR, of the Romanian Cultural Institute, was always very important. And I have been doing this work in a landscape which is much drier than the landscape where you are in, Mircea. I'm talking about a desert. So it's very difficult, and I think Silvia and Rodrigo will be able to confirm. It's very difficult to work with Romanian culture in Brazil because it's always a personal effort. Romania doesn't exist in Brazilian horizon. There is no cultural institute in all of Latin America, so the closest the closest Romanian Cultural Institute is in Washington, and it doesn't help us. So it's we can't and we shouldn't rely on official Romanian propaganda. And in this sense, we are very alone. We are very alone there, and I'm sure that everyone in Brazil who works with Romanian literature or Romanian culture in general does this out of passion and out of conviction. And so I think that one of the questions was what should a Romanian writer do to be translated or to be known in Brazil? I don't know. I don't know what to say. This is really something very difficult. And I myself, I don't understand very well. I don't understand very well how all these things work. But for example, it's much easier to be published in Brazil if you are Russian, or if you are Hungarian, or if you are Polish. No, Sylvia will correct me. Sylvia will correct me because she knows much better. I'm just giving my impressions, and I'm not living in Brazil for many years, so maybe I'm not so updated. But anyway, it's difficult to be a Romanian writer and to be translated and published in Brazil. And even if we could make any kind of collaboration, for example, with Portugal, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help also because the books that are published in Portugal, they have to be translated again for the Brazilian market. It's the same language, but it's not the same language. So it's very complicated. So my feeling is that we are very alone in this work. And recently, and Sylvia knows this very well, recently we started to have serious problems with the Romanian Cultural Institute, which doesn't work anymore as it used to work. And it's not easy. It's not easy. But I can only talk about myself, and I do what I can. I am a translator, and I think sometimes I do something more than what a translator should do. So I knock the doors of the publishers in Brazil, and I try to show them something interesting, something new. And sometimes I have the luck to find publishers like Sylvia. You can imagine, until I met Sylvia, Mircea Cărtărescu didn't exist in Brazil. And I'm talking about Mircea Cărtărescu. I think we don't need the presentations for Mircea Cărtărescu.
Did Eminescu exist before this?
Pardon?
Did Eminescu exist?
Eminescu doesn't exist. No, Eminescu doesn't exist. So it's I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe we need some descantec in order to go on and to be present in Brazil. Yes.
do you have a lot of authors you have already translated and not being able to publish them?
Well, I have many authors in my mind, and I personally I appreciate very much literature from the 20s and the 30s, and but I work in the so I don't have translations in my drawer. No, I work according to the contracts, and but yes, I think if we could find a publisher in Brazil who would be totally convicted about Romanian literature and didn't have any problem of money, I would have work for the next 10 lives, because there is the whole literature, the whole Romanian literature has to be discovered in Brazil. And translators of Romanian literature in Brazil, I don't know, we can count on the fingers of one hand. Yes.
Thank you very much, Fernando. Mulțumim foarte mult, Fernando. Really a very objective point, and not a very happy situation of the Romanian literature in Brazil, but thanks to you, to Silvia, and to Rodrigo, thanks to enthusiastic persons like you are, at least a little bit, a little something from the Romanian literature starts to be known and starts to be talked about in Brazil. I know you have to go now, but please, one last question, a very short one. Objectively and openingly, what do you think about the poetry you heard today?
Look, I know that poetry, when poetry was born, it was for dancing and for singing. But I have to read it.
I understand. So hearing it is not enough.
No, and I have also to confess that that's the first time in my life that I participate in such a room. I am in this virtual room. And all this is very impressive for me. It's very strange. So maybe I didn't have I didn't have enough concentration to absorb the poems that I've heard, but I would have much pleasure to read them, and then I could say something. Anyway, I am not a translator of poetry, and although recently I have translated a book by Ana Blandiana, and it was a very, very interesting experience. For me, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to translate poetry. But when we get to translate it in a more or less successful way, it's a big pleasure to see the result. But poetry is something very special to translate. This is something very special.
Thank you very much, Fernando. Îți mulțumim foarte mult, Fernando. De asemenea, profităm de ocazie pentru a-ți mulțumi pentru participarea all in all la acest streaming. We also take advantage of this opportunity to express our thanks for your participation in this program all in all, as I know you have to leave soon, fiindcă știu că va trebui să pleci în curând. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your evaluations, for your judgments. We are happy to have you here. We are happy you found some time to tell us something about how to be published in Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Fernando Clabin, the translator of Mircea Cărtărescu into Brazilian Portuguese. Thank you very much, Fernando.
Cu plăcere, cu mare plăcere, și dacă mai este vreo întrebare, aș mai avea timp, pentru că știu că e un subiect foarte lung și avem multe, se poate vorbi mult despre asta.
Dacă mai are cineva vreo întrebare pentru Fernando, profitați, vă rog.
I have a question. Who will win Copa America in Saturday? Brazil or Argentina?
Andrei, I am not a typical Brazilian. I have no idea.
I tried.
I don't even know how football is. Is it round?
Spherical, maybe. It's more on point, I guess. It's not like a perfect circle. I don't know.
I don't know either. I have no idea. No, I don't know.
Well, some other question for Fernando, or before this, I think maybe I can answer Andrei myself. I guess between Brazil and Argentina, the winning team will be the one of the Mornin Poets. So, some other question for Fernando? O altă întrebare pentru Fernando? Nadina, please.
Can you please explain us what exactly happened to the collaboration with litere? What is changing, or what have changed that is so difficult for Romanian literature to pass to the Brazilian space?
Nadina, it's very difficult for me to answer because I'm not inside, and I don't want to make. I don't want to judge them because I don't know exactly what's going on. But I guess.
I mean, what did you see as changing?
Well, I think it's a mix of. It's a mix of lack of money from one side, and from the other side is it's a lack of understanding what they should do. And it's very sad. It's very sad to see because the Romanian Institute has excellent ideas, but for some reason, I don't know, political reason, financial reason, I don't know, they are not able to make what they planned. And sometimes it happens in the middle of the way. So in the middle of the process, when you think you can count on them to publish the book, and as you know, to publish a book is not something that you decide and do in 5 minutes. It's not like preparing a dish. It's something. It's you have you have a lot of contacts. Sylvia can explain it very well. So suddenly we have everything in a way that it cannot be stopped anymore. And then the Institute says, okay, you have to wait, or we will see next year what will happen. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and in the case of Brazil, it was a very important tool to seduce the publishers. So this was one very important element, because if you go to the publisher and say, look, I have a Romanian author, it's very difficult. Romania doesn't exist. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Yes.
Well, it is quite sad what you mentioned, but unfortunately, yes, a little bit. It's quite a bit of a true, because there are some technical problems, administrative problems with those institutions now. We hope that with the establishing of the new governmental arch, also in the structures of the Romanian Cultural Institute, we expect it to start working again, because there really are a lot of translations already started in practically almost all the countries in the world, and it would be a pity not to finish those, not to achieve those initiatives. So once again, thank you very much, Fernando. Thank you also for those well, quite sad elements you mentioned about the cooperation with some Romanian institutions. We hope that the future evolution of it could prove that it is not always like this. As you have to admit, it has not been always like this. There were times.
No. And I am sure we will have surprises, because in all the time that I'm here, I understand that Romania is the place of surprises. You can have very bad surprises, and you also can have very good surprises, and they are always there, and they compensate each other, always. Yes. So when I get very happy when I have a very bad surprise, because I know that the opposite will come quickly.
Thank you for the very diplomatic way of explaining it. And yes, you are right. The bad surprises are compensated by good surprises. That means bad surprises are 1% and good surprises are 99%.
No.
So it is a very good compensation.
No. It's not true.
Okay, everybody understood, Professor Fernando. So, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest that we kindly ask Andrada and Alexandru to read their poems again, this time under good technical circumstances. So please, dear friends, if you'd like to read again and to repeat the sequences you had about some 30 minutes ago. Andrada, are you prepared?
Yes. Should I introduce myself again?
Please, yes, it would be better to.
Okay, so I'm Andrei Zbîrnea. I'm a PhD student. In my first year, I'm studying feminism and literature, and I'm a part of the literary group Cooperativa Poetică, where we criticize and analyze different recent poetry books. And I also went to Mornin Poets, and I'm part of that group as well. În română, Andrei Zbîrnea, sunt student în primul an de doctorat, studiez feminism și literatura, fac parte din Cooperativa Poetică și din grupul Mornin Poets. Acum voi citi poemele mele. 1. Mă întind pe jos și încerc să-mi aduc aminte cum e să respiri. Aici, unde nu mai avem decât izolare totală. În mintea mea, imaginile în mișcare. Prietenii mei ies la o bere fără mine. Iubitul meu își plimbă degetele pe corpul meu. Saliva lui un gest de iubire. Vorbim despre lucruri esențiale. Anestezie, perfuzii, haine de schimb. Picăturile de apă se scurg pe parbriz. Ăsta e settingul perfect în care nu mă mai gândesc la nimic. 2. Când deschizi ochii, încordarea propriului trup și gândul că trebuia să o mai privești măcar o dată. În dimineața aceasta, în camera lui, nimic nu se schimbă, nici amintirea lui pe care nu o voi mai avea mai târziu. Era o dimineață de iarnă, aerul uscat. Toți erau strânși în camera din față, acolo unde obișnuiam să mă ascund. Mi-am închipuit că el a plecat în dimineața aia, am stat cu fruntea lipită de geam până când nu l-am mai văzut. 3. Corpul nu mi-aparține, nici tija metalică care m-a ajutat o perioadă. Am plâns, am murit. Oasele rupte și puse la loc. Momente în care saloanele spitalului înlocuiau ce numește acasă. Părțile rupte din tine pe care nu le mai poți lua niciodată înapoi. Un corp care trăiește în afara ta. În timp și spațiu un ciclu care se repetă la infinit. Aproape deconectată de tot ce mă înconjoară, îmi văd viața de la distanță. Când inima mi ia foc și simt că totul în mine se dezintegrează, tu ești acolo, corpul tău luminează. Oasele noastre se vor descompune atât de frumos. 4. Nu sunt astea cuvintele pe care vrei să le auzi? Nu sunt astea zilele cele mai frumoase din viața ta? Când soarele ți arde fața și tălpile ți se lipesc de asfaltul încins. Corpul tău o joacă, se scurge prin crăpăturile în care doar gândacii se mai ascund. Apusul perfect când cerul e roz și ți întinzi mâinile spre el, de parcă conexiunea asta e reală. Tot self-care-ul pe care îl faci și nimeni nu ți-a zis să nu disperi că unele zile sunt atât de rele încât nu o să te mai ridici. E amuzant când prietenii tăi nu te caută și liniștea asta valorează mai mult decât orice falsă intenție. Zilele de vară, când oamenii se topesc ca înghețata și am imaginea aia în cap, Erosenin și Naruto, și îmi pare rău că nu am avut cu cine să fac asta. Îmi pare rău că pietrele mele nu țin loc de veci și acolo unde am săpat, unghiile mele mici s-au rupt din carne și cu noroi mi-am făcut sigiliu, pe burtă, ca ceacra mea să se scurgă pe asfaltul încins, pe picioarele mele, aici să nu doară nimic, nici corp, nici amintire, nici moarte, să mușc din fructul tău ca guia și viața mea să se repete la infinit. The next two are in English. 5. All the things you need for writing. Sappho licked her left nipple. I shall write the truth and only the truth. The garden was full, their bodies overgrown by weeds. Emily was clenching her fists, and the light was hitting her face just in the right place. Not even Aphrodite would dare to come down from the skies. The island's heat and the sound of the waves, barely blossomed olive trees, and that's about everything you need. And the last one. Heavenly Father, why won't you turn around when I'm masturbating? Heavenly Father, if love is the only answer, why won't you let me live a life full of love and happiness? Heavenly Father, would you acknowledge me as an equal to and not an inferior? Heavenly Father, why won't you look at me when my body is bruised, raped, abused? Why would you let them control it, devour it? Why would you let men choose for me? You only made men in your own image, and we are left with nothing, not even dirt, not even holiness. Heavenly Father, why did you shrink our bodies? Why did you choose shame before love? Why did you love cis white men more? Heavenly Father, who came first, the woman or the dickhead? We made halos out of nothing. We made goddesses in our own image. Our bodies were once cages. Our bodies were once burned by little men who only play God. Even if I have to burn again, break my body, pour gasoline down my throat, I won't beg for your mercy. I won't bow down to you. I don't need your forgiveness. Heavenly Father, forsaking works both ways, and how the tables have turned. I promise you hell will be too good for what awaits you. No man will hold power over us. Sadness and pain will be no more. We'll be free of it all. Thank you, that's all. Mulțumesc.
Thank you very much, really wonderful. Mulțumim foarte mult, Andrada. Și acum Alexandru, and now please, Alexandru Lăcătușu.
Hello, as I said before, I'm Alexandru Lăcătușu, 31 years old, advertiser, and not a part-time poet anymore. I'm joking. So, 24-bit vinyl rip. Apari cu scenarii, fragmente, particularitāți capabile să răstoarne gesturi. Clasez, să-mi frec tâmplele. Înnotător și-a găsit ritmul. În cap o fetiță sta, să fiu lângă, de acord, total. Mucegai la încheieturi, cheltuieli. Tot înainte cu flow pe stilul vechi, imun, mundan, nu-i vorba de înfrângere. Role de hârtie, bonuri într-un lighean, până se descompun. O pastă. Gândești ce putem face cu ea apoi. Mi-s un băiețel care scoate în față colecția de fluturi. Criptare pe sample, tripare, pe pernă să-ți întinzi părul, mi pun capul. Vine zmeul, zeul, să mă bage până în gât în ce am eu de făcut. Spațiul domină, zile ca asta când nu se întâmplă nimic. Fără alte dorințe să fugi, fără bani să fugi. Scindând cer mercur și biluțe de jeleu în buretele de vase din camera cu gratii lăptoase unde uneori odihnesc păsări, rest al lor în noi, printre pete, precizări, a face cu mâna unor crenguțe, blocuri sau mașini emit muzică pansament pe care praful strâns de jur împrejurul acului nu ne lasă să o primim. You appear with scenarios, fragments, particularities, able to overturn gestures I classify, to rub my temples. Swimmer found his rhythm. On her head a little girl was sitting, to be next to total agreement, mold at the wrists, expenses waist, straight ahead with flow, the old style, immune, mundane, is not about a defeat. Paper rolls, receipts into a basin until they dissolve, a paste. You think what we can do with it afterwards. I'm just a little boy that brings out the butterflies collection. Encryption of sample tripping on the pillow to straighten your hair, put my head. Here comes the god, the augur, to wrestle me up to the neck in stuff I should do. The space dominates days like this when nothing happens. Without other wishes to run, without money to run, dividing mercury sky and jelly beans into the dishwashing sponge from the room with milky bars where sometimes birds rest theirs in us between spots, clarification to wave some twigs, blocks of flats or cars give off band-aid music which the dust gathered around the needle won't allow us to receive it. Mustăți întinde iedera, nu-i zid de scoamat, la țanc să capeți muniție, pișcături involuntare, sub pervaz odihnești soldățel, lângă mucuri de țigară, strat peste strat, lângă stensil cu model al tacâmului, pe ambalaj de mezel, printre coji și țesut viscos dat din mărinimie de puber cu cagulă, recipient fără plantă, pe țiglă adună stropi, răpăie cu vopsea și rugină, răjit pur sânge caută adăpost, în furculiță încălzești, printre dinții ei se prelinge binele, să-l lipăi de pe pardoseală, face și el un bine, pleoapă pe pleoapă, frățior, păpădie să pui, lași amprente pe muchii, a te consuma constant spre imponderabilitate de o rublă la comun. Whiskers are spread by the ivy, not an unraveled wall, perfect timing to acquire ammo. Unintended pinch under the windowsill you rest, soldier, near cigarette molds, layer upon layer, near cutlery pattern stencil, on sausage package between peels and viscous tissue, given from generosity of teenager with hood, tank without herb, on the tile gathers drops, drips with paint and rust, pure blood, fried brain looks for shelter, you hit it up on the fork. Through her teeth the good is dripping, to take it off the floor. He's doing something good too. Put eyelid on eyelid, Dandelion brother, leave fingerprints on the edges, to consume constantly until weightlessness of one rubble together. O seamă de convingeri, inițiatic continuum al inocenței imaculate, dovezi sub săgețele, să inventăm un nou articol, colaps cimentat de spiritualitate, prin acvarii de lăsare, deslușiri, guvernând nerușinări, a amușina. În mijloc, sevă extrage din spații elementare, tinzi înspre diferențieri asumate, implică, împacă-te cu obiectificarea, întru totul făurit din ecrane, siguranța, marja de eroare, dinamica involutivă, constantă, comunică așa cum simți, așa cum vrei, în comuniune, reglează din sampling sunet de oraș în înserare, factori, lângă blocuri, lângă pomi, ale căror nume le ghicești. Iscoadă în semitrezie, lumina cădea de sus în ziua aia, la taclale, găselnițe deviante, deja i-a spus și ei, probabil că știe de acum, felul în care reconstituie evenimente, forme, să fie alb ca hârtia. Minute de fericire sparg rutina, se pricepe la lucrurile astea, are o plantă care trebuie udată într-una, cadrul fictiv al unei segregări de efect, amanet pentru transformări, dimineți topaz pentru amatori, labradorit, noul lui talisman, sintagme cu oglinzi, conlucrând conceptual, în față linii, lovituri, tânăr chiuie, întocmai, delay din buton de pururi, zgomot al patului, besmetic în trafic, lângă el doarme, gecuța care o acoperă, condescendent în aliniere, trip sincer, nu stăm mult dintr-atât să ne cărăbănim, developăm la preț redus, după amiaza, pe el în plata lui, își face răni, rău, să-l lași pe băncuță în frig. Ascultă, uidul, mie unul sincer nu-mi mai, din TV, na-na, na-na-na-na. Mulțumesc!
Thank you very much, Alexandru. Thank you, both of you, for being so patient, for reading once again your poems, and their beauty compensated this effort. Thank you very much. And now, without losing any more time, I would like to kindly ask Andra Berila to fulfill my eventual lack of presentation for her and to read what she prepared. Welcome, Andra.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to receive the invitation. Mulțumesc tare mult pentru invitație. Sunt foarte bucuroasă. Sunt aici împreună cu colegii mei de la Mornin Poets și eu sunt parte din... Adică am participat la câteva sezoane din cursul Mornin Poets și m-a ajutat foarte mult să mă dezvolt. Eu vin din zona de film, am făcut regie de film și am un studio de animație creat împreună cu colegii mei. Și, în principiu, mai scriu scenarii, povești și poezie. So, I come from the film field. I studied directing for animation, and I have a small studio with my colleagues. And I have a few poems for you. O să încep cu unul în română. A fost un exercițiu de la cursul de poezie, Mornin Poets, pe care nu am reușit să-l traduc în engleză, dar îl voi citi doar în română. Se numește Stânga împrejur. Viața era ca un vis. Lins, până ultimul tiror. Ultima picătură de ură, ultima repetiție de beție, ultima urmă de turmă. Doar un spectator salahor, doritor de alte vise, întinse și lințe, care, oricare, fiecare, altcare, dar nu ce are. A fost un mic joc inspirat de Ion Stratan și mi se pare interesant să, la un moment dat, poate să vorbim despre cum putem traduce anumite jocuri.
Exact,
să fie jocuri și în altă limbă. Da.
Asta voiam să te întreb. Cred că e un challenge foarte puternic să păstrezi sau măcar să transpui jocurile de cuvinte dintr-o limbă într-alta. Dar, într-adevăr, poate că vom organiza o ediție specială pentru asemenea subiecte.
Da, ar fi super interesant. Și acum, now I'm going to read two poems. Voi citi două poezii, both in Romanian and English. Prima se cheamă Iluzii. Ești aici. Te-ai mutat de atâtea ori dintr-un colț în altul, dintr-o dorință în alta, dintr-un plan în alt plan. Au rămas doar picioarele alergând spre viitor. Aleargă și acum. Ești aici. Ai rămas. Te crezi puternică. te crezi în stare să cari totul. În spatele tău nu mai rămâne nimic. Cerul, pământul, omul, le vezi și mai pui o cărămidă pe umeri. Ești aici. Lucrurile pe care le aperi s-au tocit destul să-ți intre în piele. Călătoresc prin vene, se depozitează în inimă, construiesc o cochilie înăuntru. În afară rămâne totul neted, gol. Ești aici. Nu pleci nicăieri. And now the English version, illusions. You are here. You've moved so many times from one corner to another, from one desire to another, from a plane to another plane. Only the feet linger, running towards the future, still running now. You are here. You held on. You think you're tough. You think you can bear anything. Behind you, you leave nothing. The sky, the ground, the being, you look at them and add the extra baggage on your shoulders. You are here. The things you defend, they are worn out, getting under your skin. They travel through your veins, garner into your heart, building a crust inside. Outside, all still looks soft, bare. You are here. You are not living anywhere. Negativ-pozitiv. Eu nu sunt eu. Sunt metroul care te duce în direcția greșită, deși ți-am spus foarte sigură pe mine că da, ajunge și la stația la care vrei tu să ajungi. Sunt privirea indiferentă când ceri bani și spui aceeași poveste și eu te recunosc și tu nu mă recunoști și văd că n-ai plecat nicăieri, deși mai devreme ai primit exact cât ai cerut. Sunt noroiul care se scurge de pe fusta ta nou-nouță, după ce am trecut grăbită cu un taxi, iar problema nu e că m-am trezit eu prea târziu, ci că tu te-ai trezit prea devreme. Sunt canalizarea neacoperită în care intri cu tot piciorul, în timp ce eu trec în viteză pe lângă tine, cu bicicleta, și exact când ai reușit să te ridici, îți mai dau un ghiond. Sunt bordura prea înaltă de care te împiedici și îți spargi tâmpla. Sunt oamenii din jur care se adună să vadă ce s-a întâmplat și nu fac nimic. Sunt șoferul care oprește la verde. Iese glonț din mașină și îți pune un bandaj pe frunte. Apoi îți dă palme peste față, dar nimic. Sunt liceanul care strigă că nu așa se face, nu se mișcă un rănit de la locul căzăturii, că mai rău îi faci, și se bagă să-l așeze la loc în poziția inițială. Sunt mama care sună la ambulanță. Sunt operatorul care răspunde și nu înțelege adresa și nu poate trimite așa în neant o ambulanță, așa că vă rog, calmați-vă, doamnă, odată și spuneți-mi un nume de stradă. Sunt trecătorul care spune numele străzi. Sunt soția care leșină peste trecător, deși el n-ar fi vrut să rămână prea mult prin zonă, dar acum îi face vânt cu o carte. Sunt tramvaiul care se apropie. Sunt conductorul care nu știe încă să oprească la verde. Sunt toți oamenii pe care îi cunosc, minus oamenii pe care nu îi cunosc. Bineînțeles că dau întotdeauna pe minus. Mai sunt atât de multe lucruri de bipat, de greșit. O rețea de inutilitate se întinde la infinit. Nici lipsa, nici ajutorul pe care aș putea să ți le dau nu sunt ferite de consecințe. Așa că mai bine ne prefacem că nu s-a întâmplat nimic. And now the English version for this one. Negative positive. I am not I. I am the subway that takes you in the wrong direction, even if I was very sure of myself when telling you, yes, it also stops at your station. I am the apathetic look when you beg for money and tell the same story, and I recognize you, but you don't recognize me, and I see you are still here, even though earlier you got exactly how much you asked for. I am the dirt that drips from your shiny new skirt after I passed you by in a speeding cab. Still, the problem is not that I woke up late, but that you woke up too early. I am the sewer left open in which you slip with your whole leg, while I pass you by in a hurry on my bike. And exactly when you manage to get up, I give you another poke. I am the too abrupt curbstone that makes you trip and crack your head. I am the people that gather round and watch and do nothing. I am the driver that stops at the green light, gets out of his car in a flash, and covers your head with a band-aid, while slapping you on both cheeks, but all of this for nothing. I am the high school boy that shouts, "This is not the way to do it. One does not move an injured man from the place where he fell, because it makes things worse, and he meddles in to lay the injured back into its initial position." I am the mother that calls 911. I am the emergency operator who answers a call and doesn't understand where everything happened, and she cannot send an ambulance just like that to nowhere. So please, ma'am, calm yourself down already and just tell me the name of the street. I am the passerby that utters the name of the street. I am the wife that passed out on the passerby, although the passerby didn't want to linger in the area for too long, but now he's holding her head high. I am the tram car that is getting closer and closer. I am the tram driver who doesn't know yet how to stop at the green light. I am all the people I know, abided by all the people I don't know. Of course, I always end up as a negative. There are so many things to tally up, to fail. A network of uselessness growing with no end. Neither the lack nor the help I could give are safe from consequences. So it's better to pretend that nothing really happened. Și o ultimă poezie foarte scurtă pe care am scris-o direct în engleză. And English very short poem. It's called Backstories. There is electricity on the tips of my fingers, constantly. I use it to touch people's backstories. I often wonder, is it true what you're telling me? Are your desires real? Or are they just scripted by a convenient God in the back of your mind? Mulțumesc foarte mult. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mulțumim foarte mult, Andra. I have to admit it is for the first time that I'm listening your poems. Este prima oară când îți ascult poemele, aceste poeme. Citisem alte texte ale tale. I don't want to express myself as a critic. I was very impressed, especially by that last poem you translated also in English. I think it is one of the best things you have ever written. But maybe it is my personal opinion. Once again, thank you very much. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Further, please, Nadina, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself and present us the poems you prepared for today. Ladies and gentlemen, Nadina Nikolov.
Hi, my name is Nadina Nikolov. Currently, I'm a German teacher. I'm an online German teacher, and of course, a Romanian teacher too. I am part of the Mornin Poets since I think 2017, something like that, along with Andrada, Alexandru, Andra, and Constantin, and the others that were present here, the first part of Mornin Poets. And I started writing during my uni years, during my college years. I'm gonna read something today. I'm going to begin with my English poems that I translated today, and then I'm going to continue with my Romanian poems. So, okay. I'm sitting between 4 screens and surviving, drifting away through the same shopping cart. Adding to cart, adding to cart. Other clients have bought tight, high-waisted jeans with it. What would happen if I would refrain myself right now? Is this how anonymous alcoholics decide that they belong in the detox center? I don't buy plastic, paraben, sulfates, fast fashion, food from Mega Image, maybe only if it's in the bio or biodegradable section. That's the healthiest one, you know. Stop buying from Sephora as it encourages violence against animals, slavery, or anything that is condemnable today. Stop shopping online. You should have saved some money. Bottles are piling up in a plastic mountain. The kitchen is full. Bedroom is full. Workstation is full. But should we buy a plastic carafe to purify tap water? Poem about a Sunday. Sunday is the day when old handymans repair their tables. But I remember that Sunday was the day you ate yogurt on bread late in the evening while reading țară and lied to me that you understood all his poems. Ok, am să trec acum la cele în română. Anchetă printre firele de nisip. Mi-ai spus să nu fiu dezamăgită, că viața asta de adult va fi ok. Mi-ai spus că nu mă voi plictisi într-un call center obosit, că voi câștiga bine. Va veni și rândul tău, măi, tată. Roșul pielii tale mi-amintește de crabii pe care îi mâncam la restaurantul acela la care eu nu am vrut să merg, dar mama a vrut. Tu erai doar roșu și calm. Șuvițele arse ale mamei erau mereu sărate și cu boabe de nisip, în timp ce te ținea de mână în Mediterană. Deasupra voastră un avion rusesc. Valurile mării, ascultă-le, îmi spuneai. Mai mult de atât nu mi-aduc aminte. Clinica din Vancouver. E mereu iarnă în tine, dar mai ales în mine și pentru mine. Deși afară e ca marșiță. Deșertul Bucureștiului ăstuia nu se aseamănă cu clinica de gheață din Vancouver. Mă întorc pe toate părțile în cada albă din marmură umplută cu iarnă și lumină roșiatică de bordel. Se reflectă în pielea mea albă de parcă aș fi o mixtură pentru alergii, cumpărată într-o seară împovărată de furtuni, de troiene, de fulgere, de boli. Îmi ești iarnă, dar afară e arșiță. Mai am încă una. O secundă. Alifie. Baia verde, noi doi, tu mi-ungi spatele cu 3 alifii pe melodie italiene de la Sanremo. Îmi fac spatele cort și rămân nemișcată, bătută în cuie. Simt mirosul de antibiotic și parcă și cel de scabie. Haine spălate la 90 de grade, se holbează picurând sfârșitul de mai aici, iar noi la fel de grași. Mulțumesc frumos! Thank you very much.
Mulțumim foarte mult. Thank you very much, Nadina. A complet different style, un stil complet diferit de al colegilor dinainte, un stil concentrat, poeme scurte, a concentrated style, short poems, and also very strong focused ideas. Personally, I liked the most the third one from the last one, the last but last one. Let's say like this. Good luck, and we are very happy that you were able to participate in this edition. Ladies and gentlemen, it was Nadina Nikolov. Thank you very much. One of our principles here is ladies first, and I'm looking now desperately for a Romanian lady to read her poetry now, but well, I apologize a lot. There are no more ladies to read, so I only can invite one of those 2 gentlemen which are here, Constantin or Andrei. Please, which of you would like to present to fulfill his presentation and to present the poems he prepared for today? Gentlemen, it is up to you. Well,
Andrei, are you there?
I guess Andrei.
I can start.
Well, I guess Andrei is not here, so please, Constantin, if you would like to start, ladies and gentlemen. Constantin.
I will not read poems tonight. Some poems. I will talk about Morning Poets at the end. No. This is not what we agreed before.
Okay. I thought as you are always the surprise, the man of surprise, I thought you prepared also some poems for today. Okay, in this case, we will stick to the initial plan. So,
No, Constantin.
Okay. So I'm Constantin Buduleci. My studies are based on economy and industrial logistics, but I have a real passion for writing and for poems, for books. Sunt Constantin Buduleci, to also in Romanian. Sunt de profesie economist și lucrez și am studii și în domeniul logisticii industriale, dar am o pasiune pentru poezie și cărți și literatură. I prepared for today, and I would like to thank you for this opportunity to present you some of my poems. Vă mulțumesc mult pentru această oportunitate pe care mi-ați oferit-o să vă prezint câteva din poeziile mele. So I have 3 poems, and I will present also an English version for all of 3. Am 3 poezii și voi prezenta și versiunea în limba engleză pentru toate 3. Voi începe în limba română. Mama. Mama era o femeie ca oricare alta, cu tuburi colectoare de lacrimi pe interior, locașe pentru dureri invizibile la ecograf, cu lacăte al căror cifru era știut doar de ea, nu îl desfăcea nici când locul închis stătea să pleznească de durere. A ascuns în ea puțini pași spre moarte, cum ascunde un copil o bomboană luată pe furiș. Am iertat-o ca un părinte. Mother. Mom was a woman like every woman, with collecting tubes for tears on the inside, places for pain invisible on ultrasound, with padlocks whose key was known only by her. She shouldn't open it, not even when the locked place was about to burst because of the pain. She hid in her the few steps towards death, like a child hides a candy he sneaks. I forgave her, like a father. Descrierea bulbului unui chibrit în dimineața de după prima. Bulbul unui chibrit, mereu o surpriză. Verde militar, mov secătuit, roșu stins, l-am mirosit ca pe un test COVID, textură de buze uscate dorite de altele crăpate. L-am aprins, flacără zemoasă din suc de portocale, simt prin ea gustul de cafea la ibric, picurată pe obrajii roșii aprinși. The description of the matches bulb during the morning after the first. The bulb of a match, always a surprise. Military green, dried purple, fading red. I smelled it as a COVID test. Dried lips texture, wanted by other chapped. I lit it. Juicy flame from orange juice. I feel through her the taste of Turkish coffee, dripped on the bright red cheeks. And the last one, și ultima, gunoieri în costum. Am început să ieșim la terase, să bem, să povestim, să ne căutăm prietenii. Gunoieri murdari, îmbrăcați, trec fluturând mândri, agățați de mașinile cu semnul reciclării. Chelnerii zâmbesc mai mult după relaxare. Dădusem la ghenă o chestie faină de la biserică. Obrajii nu mai roșesc atunci când vorbim subiecte tabu în mediile sociale. Era cumpărată de la o mănăstire de maici care adunau lemne pentru iarnă. S-a enervat când i-am atins mâna, de parcă mi-am adus aminte că la ghenă nu miroase a sulf, cum scrie în Biblie. S-a urcat dezbrăcat pe scenă, unele femei spuneau că e scârbos, altele că nu, dar tot nu înțeleg de ce gunoierii nu poartă costum la urma urmei. Este o treabă elegantă. Adun firimiturile de pe masă. Alt miros în afară de sulf înseamnă curățenie. Nu cred că mai este mult până la ea acasă. Blocul se cutremură la fiecare cădere a unei pungi de gunoi. Mă apropii de locul unde se află un fotoliu. Totuși, vinerea viitoare, când vin gunoierii, le voi oferi un costum. S-a întunecat. A trecut prima zi de relaxare. Gunoierii adună și manuscrise cu poezii, îmi spun pregătind costumele. Garbage man in tuxedo. We started to go out to have a drink at the terraces, to chat, to search for our friends. The badly dressed garbage man passed by waving proudly, hanging from the cars with the recycling sign. The waiter smiled more after the lockdown. I threw something nice from the church in the garbage can. The chicks stops blushing when talking about taboo subject on social media. It was bought from a nunnery where they were gathering wood for the winter. She got annoyed for touching her hand as if... I remember that on landfill doesn't smell like sulfur, as the Bible says. He got on stage naked. Some women were saying he's gross, others no. But I still don't understand why the garbage men don't wear tuxedos. After all, it's an elegant thing to do. I gather the crumbs from the table. Another smell besides the sulfur one means cleanness. I don't think it's far from her home. The block of flats shudders at every drop of a bag full of garbage. I'm reaching the place where there is an armchair. Still, when the garbage man will come next Friday, I'll offer them a tuxedo. It darkened. The first day post-lockdown has passed. The garbage man collect poetry manuscripts too. Tell me, while preparing their tuxedos. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Constantin. I will, before kindly asking Andrei to present this literary club and to describe the idea that led them to Simina and him to organize it and to initiate it, I would like to kindly ask each of you to mention the name of your translators into English.
Well, it helps me, Julia Stoichit, and I have some suggestions from Andra also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andra?
Yes, actually, it was my first time to try to translate something in English, so I wanted to do myself to see how I manage.
Thank you very much. So it was you translated yourself into English.
Yes.
Thank you, Nadina.
I'd actually kind of edited the translation, but actually my future husband did the translation for me, because we kind of try to help each other. I'm trying to help him with concerts and he is trying to help me with translations. So I just edited some points. So yeah, his name is Andrei Zbîrnea. He did like translations.
Thank you very much. Alexandru Andrada?
Julia Stoichit did my first poem translation, and I did the second one with my girlfriend.
Thank you.
So the first poem I translated by myself, and the second one I wrote directly in English.
Also a very original variant, writing directly in English. Thank you very much. So you see the name of Julia Stoichit is repeated very much here. Not an excellent poet, also member of Mornin Poets, but also a great translator into English. Thank you very much. Andrei, the floor is yours.
Yeah, should I use the same excuse that when I'm hungry, when I'm starving, my English is bad because it's a different audience now?
You can try it now with drinking instead of being hungry, you know?
Okay. So I'll speak in Romanian, then I'll try to translate myself, or will you help me with the translation, because I'm very tired, exhausted. I don't know.
Well, it is up to you. Actually, if you are hungry, I'm really thirsty, so I guess it will be a great cooperation.
Okay, so I'll start with Romanian first. Mornin Poets este un atelier de poezie, dar nu este un atelier care să aibă în centru un guru sau o personalitate care să simtă nevoia să se pună în valoare prin ceilalți. Din contră, puterea grupului este cea care face diferența.
Morning Poets is a literary club, but it is not focused on a main personality, on a great personality, a kind of a guru, but it is the power of the group, the power of the collectivity, which makes a difference towards other literary clubs.
Da, mie mi-a plăcut întotdeauna ideea de a o să folosim o metaforă cu fotbal, ca e campionatul european și n-am ce face. Există două tipuri de oameni în poezie din punct de vedere al fotbalului. Cei care joacă FIFA și cei care joacă football manager. Cei care joacă FIFA apreciază doar treaba de a da gol și a se bucura la, nu știu, din fapt unde. Mie îmi place să construiesc echipe și să le pun în teren, să-i pun în valoare și să mă bucur de succesul fiecăruia dintre ei sau fiecăreia dintre ele. Sunt mai multe ele. Ok.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andrei Zbîrnea just wrote a new poem. Actually, this comparison he made with football, the football game, is quite deserves being called a poem, and I hope he will transform it in one. He will transform it in one as soon as possible. He was saying that being a big football lover, a big football fan, he cannot stop himself appealing to football metaphors. As football players or football people belong to two different categories. I mean, he says the amateur ones and the professional ones. The amateur being the ones which are happy for each goal they mark, and the professional one, that means watching the football as a...
I'm like a coach, let's say. I'm like the coach, not like a player, basically. I try to put each player on the field and to make them give the best from them and help them develop in their
building teams.
Yeah,
building teams. That's right. So that's what he likes very much. Building teams and send them on the field and admiring their way of playing.
Și ca să revenim puțin la concret, anul acesta va apărea prima antologie Mornin Poets la editura Fractalia Toma. Am primit ediția bun de tipar de la Iulia Militaru. Săptămâna asta e o informație în premieră pe care vă dau. Și nu o să vă dau nume, dar voi spune că două dintre autoare, una dintre ele a fost în ediția trecută și cealaltă este astăzi printre noi. Posibil să apară cu volum cât de curând. Sperăm să se întâmple cât de curând cu cât mai mulți, pentru că au trecut, deci prima ediție a fost în 2018, în toamnă. Nadine a zis 2017, dar e 2018. Și de atunci au trecut 3 ani, o pandemie, și era cazul să iasă câțiva dintre ei și cu volum.
I have a new info. One anthology dedicated to our Morning Poets is now already in the printing phase. I found this out from the editor, from the publisher herself, and besides this, some of our colleagues prepare their own individual first poetry collections. One of them is with us today, and another one belongs to the group that read here 2 weeks ago, and it is quite normal. We started this in 2018, So it was in between. There were 3 years and the pandemic. So it was about the time that we came with some individual books, some individual collections.
Și la final am să citesc o poezie tradusă, bineînțeles, de Iulia Stoichiț în engleză. I'll write both my Romanian version and Julia's version in English from my, let's say, more recent book right now, because I have another one who is coming out in August or September at Casa de Pariuri Literare, CDPL, Romanian. It's Gambling Romanian Literature House, something like this. It will be the translation. It's very unusual. I will write a poem inspired by an Italian poet called Sandro Penna. Let's find first. First in the Romanian version and then the English one. It's called Ping Pong 12, Ping Pong numărul 12, Unchained Water, Sandro Penna, 13th of August. Să fie încă tinerețea apanajul meu, mașinistul probează zborul prin mulțime, tot el își încarcă bateriile lângă tânăra vietate cu un cap plin de culoare. Oli adastă, nava mamă găsește soluții, se aude departe trenuri, fantezia cea puțină ora, avem timp, o să te vindeci, în vârful cetății curajul se măsoară în pixel per minut, sub adierea unui clopot, un strop de pace, pe câmp s-a așternut mașinistul, culege flori pentru Wally, nava mamă plânge. And the English one. Should youth still be my attribute, the machinist attempts to fly through the crowd, he's still charging the batteries into the young creature with a head full of color. Wally awaits, the mothership finds solutions, trains whizzing in the distance. Wally will be at least an hour late. We have time. We will heal at the top of the citadel. Courage can be measured in pixels per minute beneath the swinging of a bell. A bit of peace has settled on the pastures. The machinist is picking up flowers for Wally. The mothership is crying. Obrigado, I guess, is the term.
Thank you very much. Obrigado, I guess. Well, my accent is very bad for sure. Andrei, it was Andrei Zbîrnea, the initiator and coordinator of this literary club.
One of the two.
Together with Simina Diaconu, I repeat also this detail. Thank you for reminding me this. Ladies and gentlemen, now maybe the highest tensional moment of the evening. I want first of all to apologize our Brazilian guests for this delay, for this unexpected delay because of technical reasons. And as before leaving, Clabino raised a lot of questions for you, Silvia. That means, first of all, whether it is better to be a Russian, a Polish, a Hungarian writer in Brazil than being a Romanian one, and whether it is hard to being convinced of publishing Romanian writers. Ladies and gentlemen, Silvia Nașanveng, a publisher of Romanian writers in Brazil.
Hello, it's very nice to be here with you. I have enjoyed very much the readings, even the sound of Romanian too. I was paying attention when you were reading in your own language. It's really nice. I learned some words in Romanian. And for me, it's very nice because I like to publish cultures or literatures that I have some knowledge of, and somehow I'm in touch with. So I basically publish Latin Americans and Spanish authors, German, and French, and that was all. Then I met Fernando Clabin through another translator who worked with me in Joseph Roth. And then, wow, Fernando presented me Nostalgia by Cartarescu, and it was mind-blowing. I was immediately in love with Cartarescu, and I hope I'm I'm pronouncing properly, Mircea Cătărescu, and it was so easy then to start publishing Romanian authors, despite not speaking anything of Romania, despite not being in touch or knowing more about Romania before. Romania was my exception for Cătărescu. And then I intend to publish more, and now we have just released Tatiana Tibuleac, which I know she's not Romanian, but she writes in Romanian, so no. And
Who's Romanian? Okay.
yes, so, sort of. And so for me, it was a very smooth introduction, and I was really certain of publishing Romanian authors. And as Fernando said, the support of litere was very important, was essential for Cătărescu, because Nostalgia is not really a slim book. And it was my first time publishing someone from Romania, and I didn't know what the public reaction would be. And I can say that it was really hard to get space in the press, but at the same time, for the quality of the authors, I get some information from reader to reader, and we could which I believe it's good sales for an independent press, for Romanian authors, and for a high level literature such as Nostalgia. And so I intend to continue publishing Romanian authors. And well, regarding being easier to be Polish, I don't think it's true. Russian, yes, it is, because Brazil is a strange place, and we have some high-low qualities. So for some reason, we started publishing Russians directly from Russian, and we had some very good translators from Russian. So it was really, really important for the start. And of course, they started translating Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, but then now we are receiving more contemporary Russian authors, or at least the 60s, the 70s generation. So it's a case study. So Russian literature is very well regarded in Brazil, but it's not the same with Polish literature. I think there are more Romanians than Polish writers published in Brazil, I guess. But still, of course, I guess the Romanian author most published in Brazil is Familia, which is kind of natural, but at the same time, she's an author of German expression. Even Chelan is not really well published in Brazil, which is a shame. But then we have Choran, with some books, and Mircea Eliade. I don't know if the pronounce is okay, but with some books, and maybe one or another. Fernando translated Max Blecher, but there are really few authors. The good news is that Brazil is very open to translations. We don't have we have no barriers to translated literature. The market's very used to it. But then the bad news is that most, I should say, 80% of the translations are from English, and mostly from the United States. So the influence of the United States and the New York Times best books of the year list is very, very big. And so I think we should work on more diversity. From one side, it's very easy to publish translated literature. From the other side, people are expecting it to be from English. And I think it's more or less the same everywhere. And being in the US, being very, very close to translate literature. But there are some, I think there are some paths we should follow. For instance, the Spanish publisher of Cartaresco has done an incredible job. Cartaresco is like a pop star in Spain, more or less. And he has like, I think, all of his books published in Spain with reeditions. And now the poetry is starting to be published too. And even in Latin America, Cartaresco has been to Colombia and was supposed to be here again in Argentina and Colombia again last year, but for the pandemics it wasn't possible. And he going to he has some editions exclusive for Latin American too. So I think the work he has done, his publisher in Spain, is fantastic. I think Spain is the country that has the complete works of Cartaresco. Not even Germany, not even France for sure now, and England is very bad at it. But so I think there are some hard ways we have to follow, but there are some possible ways. So it's not enough to publish one book of one author. So the first one is for instance, I published Nostalgia, and I would really like to publish other books, because I think first the author is getting known to the public. So you have to have more options of that author. I believe in working with authors, not with books. So the same with Tatiana. I intend to publish the second book she has just released. And I intend, for me it's easier when you get to the universe of a language and with some reference, some different authors and some reference. At least that's why I work with only some countries, mostly talking about languages, most German and Spanish, because I like to have those connections, to be able to present a time of that country, of that culture. So I think that's important, to have publishers with those views of working on a culture and with authors. And it takes time. And for this too, it's important the support for translations, because sometimes, especially for small publishers, that's the difference sometimes in being able to publish some difficult book, a book that you know that maybe you're not going to have many reprints of it, maybe no reprints of it. And also sometimes it's the difference of being able to have some budget for promotion, for marketing, for that. So the support from cultural institutes is very important. And second, not only the direct support for publishers, but some channels of promoting that culture. I remember that some time ago, some like 10 or 15 years, there was a boom of Romanian films in Brazil. Like there was one which won the International Film Festival here, and then the next year there are others. So those things are very important to have some different channels of of having other cultural manifestations, expressions in the country. And for this, we need embassies and institutes, and that's very important. And what else? But what I can say is that it's not only with Romania. Romania, yes, it's a country not really well known in Brazil, but it's difficult for Switzerland too, because there is this hegemony of United States, of English, and then if it's not in English, then France. But for instance, even for Germany, it's difficult, and we have so we don't have so many contemporary German authors published in Brazil or published with success. So it's the problem with diversity. We are open to translations, but we are not really diverse. And where else? Second, prizes are important too. Prizes are very important. For instance, I publish some Latin Americans, and I realized that after the Booker Prize list, the English Booker Prize list, started to have someone from some woman from Latin America every year. So the interest got really higher. So prizes, international prizes are very important too. So if Cătărescu won the Nobel Prize, it would be very good for the whole literature in Romanian, I'm sure. So that's I think that's the challenges we have, and I don't know. I think a stronger dialogue between institutions would help a lot too.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this, I can say, almost exhaustive presentation of the...
Yes, I talk a lot.
No, it is. I mean, it was very instructive, and a lot of elements, actually of hidden elements, I can say almost secret elements specific to the profession, we cannot find out from anywhere else. So actually, you enlightened us into very specific details about how a literature could conquer or could little by little penetrate a certain literary market. Thank you very much. It was really very impressive and instructive. Sylvia, please tell us, what do you think about what you heard today?
I really enjoyed. Of course, I have to agree with Fabien. For me, poetry is, as reading, it demands introspection. So for me, it's more profitable when I'm alone reading. But I've been touched by, for instance, I'm sorry. It's very easy to relate with her thematic. The sound of Andrei was really impressive too in Romanian. So I could also relate to Alexandru's kind of melancholy for modernity. It's very perceivable. So it was some things that reached out very easily.
So it is your impression that those three authors could have chances to be successful in Brazil?
Well, I think yes, of course, but how could they come here? You know, how could they get here? It's important to have a map. For instance, the first thing is to have a publisher here, specialized in poetry, and with a connection with that authors. And then yes, I think so. But it's good that litere go back to the tracks. It helps a lot. For instance, some years ago, just some time ago, I told all my friends, publisher, you should look for Romanian authors because the support's really good. A little bit bureaucratic, but it's really good. And then now we are in this phase that we don't know what's going to happen. How is this support going to be in the near future? So that kind of we must have programs to rely on. Those programs that we know that every February or March the program will be released, that it's for this or for that, that in 16 months you have the money in your account. So this reliability is very important. This steady programs are very important.
Thank you very much again. Once again, we hope the Romanian institutions will be, especially Romanian Cultural Institute, as reliable as it used to be some years ago, and a very good partner and supporting partner of foreign, including Brazilian editors, as soon as possible, as soon as some administrative changes are made for the institution. Thank you very much, Sylvia, and thank you very much for your time and for. Oh, sorry. Yes, please.
Just one more thing. There are some actions that are not costly and that are really helpful. For instance, some fellowships or some, like 2 months ago, the French embassy in Brazil did some meetings, Zoom meetings with editors in France and in Brazil to talk about authors. That was really helpful. For instance, that put some authors that I didn't have in mind in my reading list. So sometimes those kind of connections, those kind of meetings help a lot. Making some marketing here of some authors, or inviting Brazilian publishers to know, or to a meeting, or to something very small, but that could be a start.
Really a very good idea. It is something some of our colleagues, directors of Romanian Cultural Institutes in different countries have been doing a couple of years now, at least once in a time, once in a couple of weeks, once in a couple of months, regular meetings with local publishers in order to inform them what's new about in their literature. Really a very good point. Thank you once again, Sylvia, and I would kindly ask to I would like to kindly ask Rodrigo to tell us about his experience with Romanian, not Romanian writing authors, and how he, in which way did he decide to dedicate his career and his publishing house to them, for instance, to Emil Cioran. Once again, welcome here, Mr. Rodrigo Meneses, and sorry for the delay because of technical problems.
Not a problem. Thank you for the invitation. Mulțumesc pentru invitație. România mea vorbită nu este bună. Nu sunt încă vorbitor de limba română, deci voi vorbi în engleză. Okay?
Oh, great! What a perfect Romanian.
No, not at all. Far from that. Well, so I would like to thank once again for the invitation to you, Mr. Duta, and also to Fernando Clabin, to whom I hadn't had contact for a while with him. And I can give an account from a personal perspective of mine as a translator, both a professional one, and when I say professional, publishing books and receiving my part as for the job of the translation for the job, because I also do many translations that are not professional, that are not meant for publication of books by publishing houses. And I could say that this is the most part of my activity as a translator. I'm sorry that I entered an internet address, which was mistaken. In fact, I copied a new one, which is not that, which is in the chat. But for some reason, the new address was not copied. And I would like to talk about, because it's very important Brazilian electronic magazine dedicated to the translation of texts from as many languages as you can imagine, many of which I didn't even know existed until I saw them in this magazine, which Fernando Clabin also knows very well. The name is Nota do Tradutor, Nota Traducătorului in Romana. And it's a very, very fine translation magazine. It's free. It's only electronic, digital. It's been published since 2010. I came to discover this magazine thanks to Fernando Clabin, because he already translated Romanian authors in Nota do Tradutor before me. I then became a translator. With them, I collaborate with this electronic magazine, translating not only Romanian authors, but including Romanian authors, and especially Cioran, which, as maybe was mentioned, is the author that I dedicate to, that I have dedicated basically all my life of studies, and even academic studies. I have done both my master's degree and my PhD in philosophy. The master's degree was in sciences of religion, it was not in philosophy, but both of them were about Cioran. That was in the decades of the 20s. And since then, I've been also doing something in an independent way, which then this is the blog that I keep since the year 2010, which is about Cioran, Portal Cioran, BR, Brazil. And by the way, there are many translations of Cioran that I've made throughout these years, both from French and from Romanian. Some texts from his youth days, which are gathered together in Singurătate și Destin. In French, it's Solitude et Destin. It contains articles of Cioran's youth days. And I have already translated some of them. And besides my independent activity as a translator and a researcher of Cioran, I became passionate about Romania and obsessed, I could say, with Romania, the culture, the language, the history, because of Cioran. At first, I didn't know who Cioran was when I first read him and I discovered him. I didn't know who Cioran was. The name was very exotic to me, I must confess. The writing, the spelling of the name. I had never seen a similar name in my life, and I had no idea he was a Romanian author. So that's how I became acquainted with Romania, Romanian culture, Romanian names, and the language. I am far from being a proficient speaker or even writing of Romanian. To be honest, I find it's quite a difficult language. To me, it's easy for me, generally speaking, to learn new languages, as English is my second language. Then it's French. Because of Cioran in my PhD, I had to learn French, and then Spanish and French together, and then Italian. And lastly would come Romanian, but not as in terms of importance or priority, because I would put Romanian first. But it's the last one that I started learning, and I'm still beginning. I'm far from the proficiency of Fernando Clabin, for example. In fact, he's a great example to me. I don't know if there are many more translators from Romanian in Brazil, other than Fernando Clabin. Maybe there is one more, but I assume that Fernando Clabin is the translator who has most translated Romanian authors in Brazil. Misha Cartarescu, I came to know and to discover thanks to Fernando Clabin. Max Blecher, which was also mentioned by Silvia, I also came to know thanks to Fernando Clabin. In fact, Fernando Clabin opened many doors to me from the very beginning. It was, I think we got in contact in 2012, maybe. That's the year when he translated Cioran's first book in Romanian, first Romanian book, which is Pe Familia to Portuguese. And I think Litere was involved in that publication, in that translation. About the, the editorial market in Brazil, I'm still very external to it. I don't consider myself an insider. I am just beginning my professional career, if I may say that, as a translator. And for example, books, no, not one single book yet that I have translated from Romanian. I have translated some texts by Romanian philosopher. He is from Arad. He's a great expert in Cioran. I don't know. I don't like to use the word expert, but anyway, his name is Ciprian Vulcan, and he's an author himself. He has many books of aphorisms and also essays. And I've been translating some of these essays into Portuguese, and they have been published in a nationwide distributed magazine, which is a general culture, philosophy, human sciences magazine titled Humanitas. Humanitas as Gabriel Lixiano's publishing house. And so far, I think they were 5 or 6 essays from Romanian to Portuguese by Ciprian Vulcan. One of them, the last one, the magazine isn't even out yet, number 144. The latest number, it's by Ciprian Vulcan, but the subject of the text, in this case, is Cioran. So it's both a text by a Romanian author, which is not Cioran and is not as well known as Cioran, which is Ciprian Vulcan, but it's about Cioran. So in this case, I think these two factors come together in a very positive way, because little by little, Cioran, to begin, especially Cioran, but not only Cioran, other Romanian authors are also beginning to be known, at least, if not by the general reader in Brazil, disregarding age and demographic profile, etc. Maybe in some very strict circles, academic circles of intellectuals and so on. Cioran and other Romanian authors are really beginning to be better, well-known and widespread, read in a widespread manner in Brazil, but I think it's still very incipient. It's far from what I would like, what I dream of as the ideal situation in which there is, fostering of new publications and new translations and so on. It's really, like Fernando said, something that we do out of passion, and most of the time not receiving anything for it. In my case, that is pretty much like that. And I hope it continues being more open. I would just like to add one more thing. I totally agree with what Sylvia and Klabin said about Brazil and Romania and this, cultural distance between our countries and cultures. Just to add one more thing, that I don't think it's anything personal, so to speak, personal, involving Romania as a country and a culture that is particularly lacks interest among the Brazilian readers, because I think that it's not about any foreign culture. I think it's really something, a problem, and it's historical. It's a problem of development and even cultural development. We have a very high rate of illiteracy in Brazil. Even the people who actually read and can write and read and buy books and read books, sometimes they are limited to the bestseller authors, both national and international best-selling authors. We have the classic, the typical example, which is Paulo Coelho, and I assume he's very well known even in Romania. In fact, he's the most translated Brazilian author of all times. anyway, be that a fair thing or not. So I think it's really something internal, you know, it's a problem that we have, that we need to work out internally before we can expect a greater interest and a greater openness for authors and names and references from other countries, and not only from Romania and not only from Poland. Sylvia mentioned Russian authors. Yes, Russian authors are really, really popular in Brazil. To begin with Dostoevsky, of course, but not only Dostoevsky. But I think there is probably a reason for that, considering Russia, which is quite different. You know, it's even the continental measures of Russia, similar to Brazil, which on the one hand it can be an advantage, but on the other hand it's a disadvantage to have such a huge continental size of a country, you know, in all the ways possible, cultural, political, and linguistical as well, because we have regionalisms. There is a lack of unity in all senses possible due to this continental size of Brazil. I don't know if I could contribute in an objective way. Again, I would reinforce that my personal is pretty much a personal account. My account is pretty much a personal account. I don't have a large experience in the market. I would like to have more. I think it's very closed. And yes, it is very closed. And you have to have the contacts. I wish I had them, but I don't necessarily have them. Be it for a non-profit translation and publication, or let alone, you know, a publication of a book which is meant to be sold in the bookstores, and so the translator gets paid for the translations, let alone that. But things are changing. I hope it keeps changing for the better, even if it's a slow change, a slow progress concerning our reality here in Brazil, among us Brazilians.
Thank you very much. Different perspective now. The perspective of a researcher, of a passionate intellectual of Romanian literature that he discovered through intellectual authors as well, which became famous also, named first in other countries than in Brazil. I think both of the interventions of our dear guests were very instructive and very, very rich, very full of details we couldn't eventually think about, and I would like to thank them warmly and gratefully thank them both for this. Ladies and gentlemen, the last file, and usually the most dynamic of our programs, are directly dialogues between guests, between the both sides of the barricade. So please, dear authors, raise questions to our special guests. Please, dear special guests, raise questions to our authors. The floor is yours. The host is going to mute himself again. Andrei? Oh, sorry. Who wanted to?
I wanted to ask a question for Rodrigo Menezes, if I'm pronouncing the name right. So do you remember the first time you discovered Cioran, and how was the moment? Because when you're discovering a author that is something new, you would like to know more and more and more and more. You become obsessed with it. And how was the moment for you, and what was very interesting for you in Cioran?
It was between 2002 2003. I have two graduations. One of them, which is the first, I ended up giving up as a career path, which is advertising. And I was almost finishing that graduation course, advertising, when I was reading a book which was by one of my professors, and it was Introduction to Philosophy, the discipline that he taught. And he had a book about Pascal, which is the French philosopher, Pascal. And the epigraph to this book about Pascal was Turan, a passage by Turan from one of his French books, not Romanian books. And that caught my attention for some reason. And accidentally, maybe one week after, I was at a bookstore browsing, the sides of the books, and I saw the same name, which was, as I said before, caught my attention as a very exotic spelling, and it was Tratat de Descompunere, but it's a French title, and it was translated. It's one of his books. By the way, this is something that I would like to have said before, that it's one of the ways in that we are so behind other countries and cultures such as Spain and it's Italy, not to mention France, of course, is that in these countries, Italy and Spain, there is already all of Turan's works, complete works, translated and published for a very long time, maybe more than 10 years. And we don't even have half of it published, translated and published in our Brazilian Portuguese market, because as Fernando Clabin said, our Portuguese can be very different from the Portuguese of Portugal in many different ways, even spelling, even the way you write words, and not to mention the pronunciation. So it's not yet completely published. And so it was around 2002, 2003. It was love at first sight, I must say. I don't know if any of you have already read Tratat de Descompunere. It's Turan's debut book in French. It's his very first book in French, which was awarded even by the prize Rivarol. And well, it's a very tragic, it's passionate, but it's somber, it's tragic, it's explosive. There is blood, and he writes with his blood, with his tears. Well, this is even since before, right? Since Lacrimis Fins, there's this idea of writing with tears and so on. And I think Tratat de Descompunere, in a way, revives the same spirit of Turan's very first books, Pecunile Disperar and Lacrimis Fins, Cartea Amabirilor, and it was love at first sight. I had never read something like that. It changed my life because of Turan, or to a great extent because of Turan. I then gave up following the career of advertising and made the decision to start a second graduation course in philosophy in a different institution. And then I went to do my master's degree in Turan, and then I did my doctorate in Turan. That was 2012, 2016, and then here I am today. I finished my post-graduation studies, but I still do my research activities on Turan and related authors, including Romanian authors, including not only Romanian philosophers, but also philosophers, mainly philosophers, for example, Constantinoica, which Clabin translated. I think it must be highlighted that there is one of the very few important books by important Romanian authors, in this case a philosopher, not only a philosopher, of course, which is Constantinoica. The six illnesses of the contemporary spirit. I'm not going to say that in Romanian, but yes, it's published in Brazil, thanks to Fernando Clabin. He's always excellent translation. And I still do my translation activities and research activities in an independent way, which is related to that WordPress blog that I shared the address. So I'm half outsider to the academia, and also half an insider because I have a PhD and but they are mostly decorative because I also didn't follow the academic career. I am an outsider to academia. I'm an independent researcher and an independent translator. I don't know if I satisfactorily answered your question about how I came to discover Turan, but it was around 2002, 2003. It was love at first sight, and it's inexhaustible because it doesn't finish. It's like an endless flame, you know. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't diminish at all. On the contrary, it only increases.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I thank you for the question and the interest.
Thank you. Some other questions?
I have a question.
Please,
even I'm living in south of Transylvania at 10 kilometers from the village where Cioran was born, from Roșinari. I have a question for Mrs. Silvia. Well, for an editor, for sure, it's very difficult to publish different writers. We are talking about, in this world, about 200 countries. Every country has tens, thousands of writers. And also it happened in Romania doesn't have, at the moment when a writer wins a Nobel Prize, doesn't exist in Romania any book translated of that writer. Does it happen in Brazil also? As example, Luis Gluck, the last winner prize, doesn't have any book translated, and also it happened in the past.
Yes, it does happen. For instance, Luis Gluck, I don't think there was a published book of her in Brazil when she won the prize. Now it's there, but with another, I don't know. But I remember that when Philippe Roth died, I was in Paris, and the next day, all shop windows of the bookshops were full of Roth's works and everywhere. And then I was here when Amos Oz died, and I'm a reader of Amos Oz, but I don't have many books of him. And when he died, the next day I went to my bookshop here in São Paulo, and there was one book by him, which I had. So that's the difference. I think we still have a long way to go. There are some changes in Brazilian market. Over the last 10 years, many independent publishers appeared. And so now we are many publishers, and that's a pressure on the market, because we were not going to fight for Philip Roth. So we have to find other authors, other good authors. So we have to look the other way. We have to look for authors that are not so trendy or so popular, or countries that are not mainstream. So that's a pressure that we put on the big companies, and it's a brick by brick work. But for instance, the thing with women writers from Latin America, it started with independent press here in Brazil. There is a sort of, I don't like to use this word, but it's a sort of boom. But then it started with smaller press publishers, and now the big companies are publishing them too. And now they are talked about in the press, and there is a wave. But so it does happen. It's not. But if Mircea Cartarescu wins the prize, then we have at least 2 books of him in Brazil already published, maybe more.
Yes, thank you.
Quite a honest point, and a very penetrating one. So we have to fight for more literary awards, and maybe for another purely Romanian noble, because the one we have is actually half by half ex aequo with Germany. Thanks a lot. So, other questions, dear guests? Please, Sylvia.
I'd like to know if any of you are published abroad, and if it's difficult to be published within the European Union, or if there are more open channels for you.
Okay, this is quite a question. So, as usually, as we are very polite in this case, right, gentlemen, ladies first.
I don't know how to answer.
I'll try an answer, even though I'm not a lady. Okay.
You are quite a gentleman.
Yeah. The problem in Romania is that this translation and words thing is it's a box for only the chosen ones. Basically, it's like if you have a friend who knows someone, a translator, he will not tell you this. He will keep it for himself or for herself. So it's not it's like a battlefield. It's not like a friend thing. This literature in Romania, and also the festivals are also based on friendships. They're not very nice friendship, like something. It's you know a guy who knows a guy, and so basically it's like a volcanic thing. We like to we tell ourselves that it's a Romanian thing, but no, it's a volcanic thing. This is how Mircea, what happened? You are staring. So you disagree with what I say?
I was just being melancholic.
Oh. So basically, the translation, you will be very lucky if you have few poems translated into a foreign language. Not to mention a book. It's very hard to have a book published abroad. And sometimes when you are published abroad, you will not know that. I know an example. I was the moderator of an event, and I asked a Romanian writer about a Czech translation, and she said, "I never saw that book." So it's very complicated, and for poetry, it's even more complicated. For I don't know, Mircea Cărtărescu is a lucky guy. He's a very good author, but like him, we don't have 10 or a dozen of authors with this such a luck. So basically, we have lots of good writers who will never be translated into a foreign language. It's a very sad, but it's sad but true, to quote Metallica, basically.
But at the same time, if I may, at the same time, Mircea Cărtărescu has a very, very powerful publishing house beside him. Like he is with Humanitas, and very few young authors or authors that have many books published, but at other publishing houses, don't really get the chance to get translated, as Andrei said, because the publishing house kind of has a very big power in the market. So, as Andrei said, very many good and powerful authors will not be translated because of that. So, this is how I am seeing it nowadays.
Maybe there are things which can be done about it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm still naive, maybe I'm still a romantic, delayed teenager. But I think that given this structuralization and categorization, quite strict categorization of groups within literature, and I completely agree with Nadina and Andrei that within the Romanian literature it works just like this. Maybe the solution is, especially under the auspices and in the conditions of the European Union, well, I repeat, as naive as it may sound, the singular, the individual initiative. I mean, just visiting a country, making friends there among poets, and especially young poets, young writers, can do this much better than at my age, for instance. Meeting someone their age, understanding what they say. Okay, let it be also through the third language. Personally, as a translator from small languages, that means from Czech, Slovak, and Polish, I am very much against translating through a third language. But sometimes you don't have, you have no choice. If you are from Tierra del Fuego, and you want to understand some Manchurian writer, the only possibility is to read some English or Russian translation. And then, if both of them are young and active, they can start relating. They can initiate a kind of international structures that could help them change their experiences and know other poets. It seems that the system, the originals, the official system structures of the systems reached their ends, or the end of their possibilities. Maybe it is the time that the individual writer, the individual poet could do something by himself or by herself as well. Of course, you can react that, you can oppose that the risk is that the result could be, let's say, of a very middle level, of a middle level, and not of very high quality. This is the risk, okay. But nevertheless, if among 20 or 30 artists, writers, you meet this way, you find one or two which are of a very good artistic level, I think it's a big victory. And it is a beginning for something to do further. Yes, I have to admit, I'm speaking partially from my own experience, because as a poet, even if I'm a Romanian, I write in Czech. And wanting it or not, the country of my readers and of my spectators, of my viewers, is Czech Republic, eventually Slovak Republic. So before the pandemic, I used to be there once in 2 weeks or once in 3 weeks. And it is a very good modality of making contacts and of making structures, of meeting interesting people. Finally, if I am to extrapolate to it, that's how Fernando Clabin met Rodrigo Meneses and Silvia Nashon-Weng, I guess. It was about private initiative. It was not the Romanian Cultural Institute which put you together, which gathered you together, but your common passion for something different in the field of literature. So maybe, I repeat, maybe it may sound naively, but maybe it is something within it. Maybe it is a possibility. Okay, some other questions, some other observations, some other mentions. Please, Rodrigo.
If I may, it's a proposal or a suggestion. I would love to, propose translations of poetry of the poets who are here online and who have read their poetry. some of which it was kind of hard for me to understand directly in English, at least 100%, but then in English, in Romanian, sorry. And then in English, I could at least catch what I hadn't caught in Romanian. I would love to translate some of it to in Nota do Tradutor, which is this specialized magazine in translation, in which I have already translated Cioran and Clabin, other Romanian authors. And if you want to be published in Portuguese, translated by me in Nota do Tradutor, we can make the contacts and begin to talk about that. It would be an honor. To me, to be honest, it's also a way to enhance my CV, you know, with translations, and I want to increase it, especially with translations from Romanian.
Thank you very much, Rodrigo. It's a very generous proposal. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help Rodrigo enhance his CV. So please write to him, send him your texts, and I'm sure it is, if I am to quote a famous film from a famous culture, but well, let's say from the very high level, a very high level of that famous culture, maybe it is the beginning of a very beautiful friendship.
Can you write down an email address maybe on the chat?
Yes, can I?
Yeah.
Please.
We will take this very seriously, so we are very glad to hear that from you.
I also have that need mentioned by Sylvia and Clabin of reading it, especially because I'm not yet, you know, proficient in, let alone listening, understanding, right? So yes, if you can send me whatever you want to, or you think of being translated and published in Brazil in Portuguese, that's the address, portal @gmail.com.
Thank you very much.
I thank you for the contact. I hope it's just the beginning of a very fruitful.
I'm sure it will develop.
Contact
will develop into something very complex and very beautiful, very generous proposal of you, Rodrigo. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, if there is no other mention or question to be raised, I would like to thank all of you once again for remaining so late with us until this hour. Well, it is not just like this. Please take minus 25 minutes at the beginning because of that technical problem. So it wasn't a 3-hour long, but a 2.5 hour long edition of the International Unions. Thank you for your poetry. Thank you for your experience, dear guests from Brazil, Sylvia Naschenweng, Rodrigo Meneses, and Fernando Clabin, which I have the feeling that is back now. Thank you very much for being here with us. Thank you, Andrei, for this beautiful initiative of Morning Poets, and be with us next week and all the next weeks, usually on Wednesday evenings with literary saloons or international reunions of the Familia magazine in Romania. All the best. Have a wonderful evening here in Central Europe. Have a wonderful afternoon in Brazil. And Fernando, have a wonderful evening in the Romanian Brazil of Bucharest. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Milioane de mulțumiri, Mircea. Efectiv, m-ai salvat. Nu știu cum s-a întâmplat, nu știu cum, pur și simplu n-au mai mers butoanele alea. Mii de scuze și milioane de mulțumiri. Noapte bună, toate cele bune.